For the last month, I was reading Reddit, asking my colleagues and friends to figure out one thing. What is the worst message that manager can send you? Some of the answers turned to be annoying, some were pretty wild, and some like borderline illegal. So here's 15 worst things that you can receive from your manager. Enjoy. And the number one is, what did you spend your time on? If you ask me, I don't think it's necessarily a bad question. I mean, I can imagine that it can come from a good or at least reasonable place. It basically means that your manager cannot see your work properly. But if asked like in the wrong moment and straight to your face, it feels like micromanagement, and it feels like a question that comes from distrust. So if you're a manager, I would not like completely ban this from your vocabulary, but I would recommend lay the right ground before asking something like that. For example, explain where this question comes from. Maybe there are a lot of things that can be unnecessary that compete for the time of this employee and you want to help. And if you are happy with the results this employee gives you and you just feel this internal need and anxiety that you have to know exactly how things are done, otherwise you cannot calm down, think twice if you actually need to ask this question in the first place. So the next one is, people are waiting in line for your position, or the other version of that is, you are easy to replace. And it practically means a threat of firing you, and some managers use it in case of a slightest inconvenience or like slightest disagreement. They're like, I'm nothing holds you in here, which to be honest is a relatively cheap shot. Both for managers and employees are doing sometimes this as well. And it's kind of problematic for a few reasons. First of all, often it's just an empty threat. Second of all, it is kind of disrespectful. And third, like my observation is that managers sometimes they use it to justify all kinds of crap that they wanna push you to do. And because of that, they expect you to put on with it. So yeah, for me, it's pretty high in the ranking of the things I would never want for my manager to tell me. I'm not challenging you. And challenging you right after that. So managers often want to appear friendly, and they want it to receive less pushback from employees when they ask for something. But often they don't know how to do it better than just naming it, like saying, I'm not challenging you, hoping that this softens the uncomfortable conversation. And some people are just passive-aggressive, so sometimes people say mean things with a nice face, if that makes sense. But what I don't like about I'm not challenging you is that I actually don't mind. Challenge me, talk to me, give me feedback, let's sit together, set the right moods, tell me what I can improve, and I'm happy to do that. So I'm not even sure that I agree with the whole idea I'm not challenging you. Like, it's okay, you just need to do it like a normal human being and a professional manager. Okay, I was really surprised when one of my friends suggested this one, and I didn't get it in the beginning, but then I think I understood it. So the suggestion is, how can I add a footnote in a Word document? I mean, it is okay to assist your manager in some of the things, but when things like that are like so trivial and so basic, it can be irritating. I also know that sometimes managers, they not even ask for your help. They ask you to jump on a call with them and do it while they're watching. So yeah, it can get out of hand. And I understand why it can be irritating. Congratulations, your salary increase is 5 euros. Or at any number that you personally consider laughable. Yeah, unfortunately, managers can be very out of touch, and it's a whole big thing with companies giving their employees like pitiful bonuses and increases that sometimes you're thinking, it's better not to do anything than do that. So, for example, do you remember the IT outage and this whole CrowdStrike situation that happened still relatively recently? A few sources mentioned that employees who worked on a CrowdStrike, on, like dealing with clients and all of this pressure for these few days, they received a bonus of like something around 10 euro gift card, which is, I don't know, like so unproportional and like just doesn't feel right. If this is how you reward the employees, if this is your approach to valuing the work of people who clean up the mess that happens, not good. Let's push it through and then we'll see. You can practically read it like, I do not want to invest any time into planning, and I just want for you to do what I tell you right now. And the worst thing about it is later on, when we will fail because of the lack of sufficient planning, manager can blame you because you did not push them back when they were unreasonable or something. And I'm laughing right now, but actually that's not funny. That's actually very sad. This one I especially hate. The deadline is yesterday, which intends to be as a semi-joke to kind of translate a very tough deadline. But like, in reality, you ask me to compensate for your lack of planning if you approach me with a task for which the deadline was yesterday. It can be non-toxic if manager approaches you with that and you kind of both in this mess together. So something changed, something happened, and you have to team up and deal with that, and your manager is together with you on that. Not a problem. But what often happens is that manager gives you the task with the deadline that is yesterday, and you will be facing the consequences of that, not your manager. So in the end, you will be the one to blame. But to be honest, nevertheless, even if it's not toxic, it is just uncomfortable to be in a position of person who has a deadline that is already impossible to face. The next one may require explanation. It is, hey, how are you? And this one came from me. This I haven't seen anyone complain about, but I do. Just tell me, please, what you need. And don't get me wrong, it's absolutely normal to ask this, especially on the calls. But if it's a message in the middle of the day and I already spoke to you and you're saying, hey, how are you? I'm like, I know that you want something from me. Just get to the chase, tell me what you need, and I will help you. Or I think there is even worse variation than that when people just send you hi and then silence. So you need to say, hi, how are you? They will answer, I'm good, how are you? You say, good. And then they get to the original question that they could just write in your messages from the very beginning. Maybe it's a cultural thing though. I acknowledge that. But for me personally, I'm all in for small talk, and you can even message that. But just if you want something, just explain it in the first message straight away. It makes things so much easier. The next one is, I know it's your vacation, but do I even need to comment anything there? If your manager reaches out to you on your vacation, there is a chance that maybe you didn't prepare well. You didn't prepare the backup plan, the handover and everything. But sometimes managers are just like lazy to go over a handover email that actually includes all of the information that they needed. And especially if you are not a director yourself just yet, I don't know, I doubt that it is that urgent that it cannot wait for a few more days. The next one is, it should be a 5-minute task. And this one also can, in theory, come from a good place. For example, your manager sees a potential for you to optimize the time that you spend onto something, which is generally not a bad thing, but it feels annoying. It feels like a distrust. So if you want to give me a feedback about the ways of working, do it properly. Don't just throw your judgment of, oh, it's a 5-minute task. Start with explaining the facts that you observed. For example, I've noticed that this particular task took you... If you hear the noise, oh, maybe I show you. Wait. So that's the source of the noise. Okay. Where was the camera? Here's how to do it right. First, you state the fact that you observe. I've noticed that it takes an hour for you to do this report. The second step is you name how you feel about it. For example, you can say, I'm concerned about it because we barely met the deadline last time, and you also have a lot of backlog of other urgent tasks that are waiting. And then the third step, you open a question for a discussion. How can we improve that? The next one is, you should stay ready to work. If company has workers who are working shifts, maybe regular ones, it is a very convenient way to push and stretch these people how company wants. So there are roles that actually require being on standby where it's the case. And this is a completely random note, but a few days ago I actually finished rewatching Evangelion, and the pilots of Yevas, they should be on the standby because you never know when enemy will hit the planet. But if you're not separating a huge robot to save the humanity, I believe that you should be allowed to have proper days off and not being constantly in the modes that they will call you, the company calls you, and you should drop everything and go and work your shifts. Because it is bad for work-life balance, and because you don't have this boundary, you don't rest properly. As simple as that. You don't have husband, you don't have kids, so you can stay working late. And first of all, no one should make judgments about if what you spend your time on is worthy or not, just because it's more or less socially acceptable. And again, it doesn't mean that you should stop being understanding towards people who have kids, but you shouldn't use it to put others into a disadvantaged position. Does that make sense? You can stay late and work late if you want to. And also you can keep what you do outside work private if you choose to, and you have a full right for that. So the next one is a little bit scary, and I struggle a little bit imagining managers saying something like that, but apparently that's the case. And the phrase is, will you keep talking or will you start working? Like, huh? I think this phrase came from the creators of when people are on a meeting, there is like often one person who's saying, yeah, let's stop talking and let's start the actual work, which, like, oh my God, like I can talk a lot about that, but for the majority of us, this is a part of work, communication, talking to people, aligning on things. Like, this is as important as, I don't know, anything else. And there are just managers who are very impatient, so they want to rush everyone with something like that. We have everyone doing everything around here. When I see that, the first thing that comes to my mind is like a small, relatively smallish company where people are saying, we are the family, which is already by itself a very, very red flag. And sometimes we as experts choose to go to smaller companies because we have a chance to work on a variety of things. Because in a huge corporate, usually we have a very narrow responsibility area, and it's much harder. It's like a luxury to try yourself in different things. But often when managers are saying something like that, it's just an excuse to like make an accountant in a small company to also water the plants or something. Like when the company is kind of a little bit cheap to allocate a person to the job that needs to be done, and they just say, oh, everyone is doing everything. Can be annoying, 100%. You have to do the job, but we will not pay you for the overtime. And this one I take with a grain of salt, because if you reach a certain seniority level in a career ladder, you don't get paid for the overtime, but you actually have a very decent salary and you often don't pay for the overtime. But for the majority of people, that's actually not the case. The salary is relatively small, and if you overwork, you deserve to be proportionally paid. And managers can be tempted to put like an unreasonable amount of job on their employees and push them to work overtime to do it. But it's not only unfair, it's actually not sustainable. People will leave it like that because this is not the culture and environment a lot of people are even ready to tolerate. And there are much better ways to increase the level of discipline of your team if you need it. And I recently made a video about how to do that without turning into a tyrant. So check it out if you like. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you there.